And I have a folder in my file cabinet that says why Mrs. Garrison teaches. And it's filled with like emails from students like, I've changed my major, I'm going into, environmental engineering or whatever it may be. Or I was learning about this in class, but you already taught us all about it, and I was able to contribute to my team, all of this. So yeah, I get those emails. Look into. So we looked at what a watershed was and where the water goes on our campus. I even took them to the wastewater treatment facilities so they could see what happens to, our human wastewater. And then what's just happening to rainwater and runoff on campus. We looked at drains that are everywhere in parking lots that a lot of people don't notice because they're just ubiquitous. And we looked at water flow and where is the water ending up, and it's ending up in our creek down here. We did some water testing and found that the quality of that creek, the biological community, as well as the water chemistry is not awesome there. And so I started asking questions, why is that? Why isn't our creek pristine? What is adding to these problems that we are seeing? Where is the water from the parking lot going? And there's actually a pipe that directs it straight to the stream. It doesn't get to infiltrate at all. So we talked about that. And we developed some ideas for solutions. I did a different field trip. This was 2 years ago, where we looked at a green roof in Lexington, where they had implemented that to kind of manage their stormwater runoff from the roof. They also had permeable concrete, so that allowed some water infiltration from that parking lot of that facility. That was actually the Clausen group that we toured. And they also have a rain garden, so students got to see what that was and how that manages water flow, and not only water quantity, but also helping with water quality. So we showed them a lot of, we discussed best management practices for watershed uses, lots of things. And then students developed a plan of their own, how we might be able to improve the water management right here at the stream. And there were lots of proposals that the students gave. And I partnered with community members to judge those student projects. And in fact, the student project was introduced by someone at the Kentucky Division of Water. It's even more authentic and more real when I have somebody else, an expert in the field, come in and say, hey, here's the problem. Do you think you can fix it? We'll come back and judge your projects in 5 weeks or whatever. And so I had people from the Kentucky Division of Water, Conservation District, professors at our local community college here, master gardeners of Mason County, lots of different people who have a stake in it, and to come and judge their projects when we were finished. And the best projects got to actually implement their project. So we gave them the money to introduce the project. And your next question is probably like, where did the money come from? I applied for a grant through TC Energy for like education and environmental improvement. And I asked for $7,000 and they gave it to me.
Nice.
And so those students, I used some of that money for the field trips, and then the students used that pot of money, whichever projects were deemed best by those community members, they got the money to implement it. And so we did implement those things. We planted like 100 trees to improve the riparian zone of the stream down there. And then we also implemented a rain garden, and I brought in other community members to help us with, like, how do we design a rain garden? How deep do you make it? What are some adjustments that we need to make? What kinds of plants do we put in it? All of that. And that person was a person from SD1 in Northern Kentucky that came and helped us with that. Unfortunately, that was like right before the pandemic hit. So that class, like, it was shut down, and that class didn't get to put in the rain garden. But the next year I brought back those students, and they led my next year's classes in installing it. So we kind of had to work around that a little bit, but we do have a rain garden on campus now. I have attended a lot of professional development, and especially since we switched from the Common Core standards to the NGSS standards, those standards are phenomena based, but it's really about critical thinking, developing an argument or a solution to whatever problem phenomena that you are presented with. And then how well can you back up your argument, or how good is your solution, is basically how it is. And that's how they're assessed now. So after attending a lot of those professional developments, I really started getting away from the traditional test taking style and went very much into experiments, problem solving, critical thinking, just phenomena based learning. And that also was what I had dreamed of doing anyway. So when the NGSS standards came out, it really was the green light to go ahead and move forward with phenomena-based learning. And as I said in my synopsis, students don't remember content. They remember experiences. And if you've ever, thought back to a job that you've completed or internships that you've held, you probably remember snapshots of doing something or being in the field. Like I remember doing some water sampling in the field. Do I remember what I was testing for? Maybe it was atrazine. I mean, it's hard to remember, but I remember those experiences. And students are the same way. So when I think back to my internships with the EPA, my time at Orsenko, my fellowships and research that I did in college, like that's what I remember. And I know that that's what students are going to remember as well as the experiences. So that's really what inspired me, is just my life experience, knowing that I wanted to give them those phenomena-based and experiment-based and problem-solving experiences. Most of the students enjoy not having a test, and the assessment is your project proposal. That's how we know what you've learned. And I feel like that's an authentic assessment, because rarely in a job will you have to take a test. Like maybe for some training on the job, you might have a few checkpoints, kind of like when you get your driver's license, like a certification type thing. But rarely are you going to have tests after test after test in a job. It's going to be projects. It's going to be collaboration. How well did you work with your team and your group members to get the job done? Did you meet your deadline? And was your project successful? That is all very authentic. And I think that students appreciate that, because you get that question a lot. When are we going to use this? And the answer for taking tests is almost never. So like this year, I didn't give a single test in biology. It was all project-based assessments. So it could be a presentation, it could be presenting your model to the class of whatever concept we were covering. But I think that they really appreciate, well, I've heard a lot of students say, I'm glad that we don't have tests in here. And they appreciate the authentic assessment.